now listening to Protecting Your Nest with board-certified family medicine and obesity medicine specialist Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com. Welcome to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. This is podcast episode 183 and will be the first podcast of 2024. The new year is a time for all of us to reflect on the previous year and maybe even start thinking about setting some goals for the year ahead. I think it's so important not to only think about what your goals are, but to start working on them by doing simple things like writing them down, deciding how big those goals should be, and also making sure those goals align with your purpose. Many of us will use the new year to focus on our health-related goals, and our diets will be the primary focus. Today, I wanted to have a guest who has benefited from dietary changes, and my hope is that his story will enlighten you so that as you begin your new year, you will better understand why dietary changes will not only help you achieve better numbers on the scale, but can help you heal from so many other health-related concerns. Today's guest is Adam of the Carnivore Today YouTube channel. Today, Adam will share his transformative health journey and how his animal-based diet was the primary reason for his success. Adam is also volunteering to support the Carnivore Diet documentary led by Carrie of the Homestead How YouTube channel, along with other team members like Alia Wells, who is the brains behind much of the much-needed fundraising that we'll need to raise to make this documentary become reality. So Adam, you know you are one of my favorites. I appreciate you and all the work. You didn't know that probably, but now you know. And I appreciate you, Adam, for coming to the podcast today. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me today, Tony. And I really appreciate the fact that you had me on and able to share my story with others and hopefully to inspire others in the new year. And I mean, this is almost a dream come true because after meeting you in person and, understanding just exactly how high quality of a person you are and just a great soul. I really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much. I'll be sending those comments to my wife and my mom so they can both hear that to get us started. I thank you. And it was definitely a pleasure meeting you, Carrie, his family, his beautiful daughters. It's just nice to know that we're going to get that message out about animal-based diets and just leveling the playing field. So I really appreciate that. Another thing I like about us recording this as we start the new year is that my last podcast episode was one where we talked a little bit about the value of being, a giving person. And so I think it's important that for those who had not checked out that episode, particularly on YouTube, because when I interviewed Father Dennis, who leads the Stepping Stone Foundation of Hope, we did some really cool images to show the kids that we support. I sponsor a couple of kids. So I just wanted to put that in front of people just to remind people what a great thing to start the year with by being charitable and helping those who are less fortunate. So with that, Adam, let's learn a little bit about you and your family dynamics. So I want to know a little bit about, your family dynamics and maybe even, where you're living on the planet these days.
Sure. Yeah. I am married to my beautiful wife of 13 years, and my anniversary is actually today. So
nice.
We're going to do a little bit of celebration tonight for that. And so I also have two sons, 25 and 26 years old. They are both out on their own and doing their own thing.
Nice. So that's nice.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at those ages, man. Mine are 24 and 26. So we're right there. And they're out of the house, huh?
They're out of the house.
Wow. Let me put a note on that. So to wife, kids should be out of the house.
Right. We're on Protecting Your Nest podcast, but we're an empty nest. So
that's right, and that's okay. And I think what you do is you protect your nest as long as you can with the kids, and then hopefully show them how to then go and create their own nests. And I think that'll be the goal. It's definitely been a joy being a parent. certainly excited about your 13 years of marriage. It's a beautiful thing, and I hope more years to come. So I appreciate you sharing that with
Thank
my
you.
audience as well. Let's talk a little bit about this carnivore community. And I know that we may have found each other through Kerry of Homestead How and the work he's doing. But, you know, what can you say about this carnivore community, man? It's like you feel at home. And I'm just curious how it has impacted your life since you've been part of it.
Sure. Yeah. The carnivore community has had a huge impact on my life. I've never met a group of people that are so giving and caring and just thoughtful. It's unlike anything that I've ever experienced in life. And I kind of view that through the lens of this way of eating. So
Mhm.
it's almost like it has lifted a fog and anxiety, depression from people that they have this zeal and zest for life that they never had before. And getting to experience that together with all these folks is absolutely incredible. I love it.
Yeah, it's been the same for me. I'll be chatting with, I shared with you that with Bella, with the steak and butter gang.
Hmm.
And you come on these platforms as the so-called expert speaker, but the reality is, I think I benefit from those interactions as much as they do, to be honest. So I just think having a community, rather it's low carb, keto, or carnivore, just to have someone. So for anybody checking this out, you're going to start your journey this year towards your goals, rather it's health related or other, and find somebody who's on a similar path. It really makes it easier. And when you're having those moments when you're, feeling like an imposter and you don't think you can do it, you'll
Right.
have people around you who will lift you up and help you. So I really encourage everybody, don't do this alone. There's no need to do it alone. There are plenty of people. Rather, it's in your leadership journey, being a better parent journey, being a better husband or wife journey. All of these different roles can be achieved much easier because if you partner with others, you may get tips. Maybe you'll learn about a recipe that you hadn't thought about. Maybe you'll hear about a struggle I had in my marriage that you hadn't heard about, and you're now faced with that. Maybe I can give you some advice there. So I think those are the types of things that community brings. So please make sure you guys do that as well. Another
Absolutely.
thing about you, Adam, that I love, and I learned this when you came to visit Chicago for the meetup, you have some skills behind the camera.
All
So,
right.
when I saw some of the images for the documentary when you guys filmed me, it was clear that that was a skill. So when you filmed Healing Humanity, I love that work that you're doing. But also, I'm just curious, where did your love for photography come from?
Well, that's a great question. So I've always enjoyed photography, even when I was little. I had a little 110 film camera, and if you remember what those are.
It's been a minute.
So, yeah, I had one of those and just snap pictures over and over and over again. I didn't really know what I was doing at that point. I just liked capturing, what was in front of me and had a
Mhm.
love for that. But when I was, let's see, I think it was around 28, I received a DSLR as a Christmas gift.
Mhm.
And once I had that in my hands, a professional camera, and could see I could do with it, I just fell in love with the process. And, that led to helping others, giving out free photos to, so they can see the best side of themselves. And
Yeah.
that led into sports and action photography. And that led into journalism and just kind of snowballed from there. So when I look through the lens, I try to perfect and get the lighting precisely right. I mean, it's a challenge now at this
Yeah.
point, but yeah, it's just a passion for great visuals.
Yeah, and I noticed when we were preparing to record, there was a lot of, wait a minute, let me check this, let me do this. And obviously I don't see the world through your lens, but it's nice to have people in the world who can do that. I've seen some wonderful images from people, and it's amazing what you can do with a camera, right? It's like, and I know the phones have become many people's camera these days, but it's nice to know you can take it to another level with the right training. So I'm really looking forward to all the work you guys are doing there. So let's start talking a little bit about um, this weight loss journey. You're not the man you once were. When I look at you guys, you carrying others, man, I'm just like blown away. Even when I interviewed the ketogenic woman who has a wonderful YouTube channel with recipes, and I saw her before and after, and it just blew my mind. I never really benefited from a weight loss perspective because I've never had a weight issue, but so many people come to the new year with that in mind. So talk a little bit about your weight loss journey.
Absolutely. So I will preface this with, I didn't come to the carnivore diet with weight loss in mind. I did have weight to lose, but I've had so many failed attempts in the past that it was just yo-yo, kind of lost hope, that I'm never going to be able to lose weight. So I came for an autoimmune condition. And as a result of trying to fix that, the weight just was sliding off, and it hasn't come back. So at my heaviest, I was 80 pounds overweight, and I've completely lost all of the fat that was on my body, and I'm now at my optimal weight. So that was a huge bonus and plus to eating this way. And I don't view it as a diet now. I view it as a weight optimization or health optimization lifestyle, because it's healed so many other things besides just, losing the weight.
Well, that's good to hear. So you lost this significant amount of weight, and I think I'll comment on a couple of things you just shared. The first is this autoimmune thing, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So when you're thinking about low carb, keto, or carnivore, but particularly carnivore is particularly helpful for autoimmune conditions. I consider my irritable bowel problem that I solved autoimmune, and so those conditions for sure. Anything that deals with neurodegenerative diseases like dementia, Huntington's, all of those, I think the benefit is off the charts. And of course, mental illness. I think those three things are like particularly helpful. But of course, any metabolic health condition would benefit. So for anybody out there who's not just thinking about weight, think about those other conditions as well, because they have really provided hope for people who lost hope. The other thing I want to say about this weight loss idea, and it's the idea that the Public Health Collaborative, so if people search that, and we'll maybe have a link to that, when they compare low fat to low carb, and of course low carb, carnivore is under the low carb umbrella, there's no comparison when it comes to randomized controlled trials. And when you pull up the infographic that the Public Health Collaborative has, when they looked at significant weight loss, it was literally 39-0. In other words, there were 0 low-fat diets that gave you more weight loss than a low-carb diet. 0. Wow. Significant. Wow. Now, when it comes to just weight loss, it was 62-7. So 62 were of the low carb were better than the 7 low fat. So, and it does this. And what you've experienced, I'm sure, is, you have this appetite suppressing effect. So when you're in ketosis, rather a keto diet or a carnivore diet, your appetite's going to be suppressed. So when you think about things like the ghrelin hormone that makes you feel hungry, that hormone is going to be at a level that makes you not feel hungry. It's going to suppress it. It also is going to reduce your insulin. So you're now on this roller coaster. So one of the things that so many people who take on this dietary pattern learn is that they're not hungry. I mean, I didn't eat breakfast before this recording. I don't have to eat breakfast. I don't get hungry. So I can eat breakfast, but I don't have to. And I think that frees us.
For sure.
Other things. So I'm sure you've experienced that. So let's dive a little deeper into, I had a chance to, as I was thinking about this conversation, and I think the video that gave me some insights is when you talked to Carrie with Homestead How, and you kind of shared some of the things that got better. And I think when you mentioned autoimmune diseases, you probably were talking about the vitiligo that you mentioned. talk a little bit about, vitiligo. And so for people, just explain what that is and how did the dietary changes improve that?
Absolutely. So I've had that condition for approximately 8 years or so.
Hmm.
It started off just kind of some small spots around my waist, and then it gradually expanded over the years. And it really wasn't that much of an issue for me because it doesn't hurt. It's not
Hmm.
painful or anything like that. And it was in a inconspicuous spot, so people, they're not going to see where it is. And but after approximately 2 years on a vegan diet, out of solidarity, I went on that out of solidarity with a business partner of mine and friend that had cancer. I noticed that the vitiligo was actually showing up on my arms. And at that point, I got a little concerned because everybody's seen somebody with this condition. Maybe some people don't understand what it is, but and a lot of times if you see it on someone else, it's on their face, where they've lost the pigmentation in their skin, and just looks like white patches, no matter what skin color you are.
That's right.
So I got concerned, out of vanity's sake, that it may spread to areas like my face. And like I said, it doesn't hurt. It's just a vanity thing. So I looked into ways to kind of reverse this condition or heal it, solve it. At that point, up until that point, I hadn't really looked into ways to fix it. Maybe briefly, and some things like UV exposure,
Hmm.
expensive treatments and things like that. But the UV exposure didn't help, and I didn't have enough money to spend on the expensive treatments, so I just kind of lived with it. So
Hmm.
fast forward to when it spread to my arms. That's when I did a little bit of YouTube University. So I searched for answers and see if someone else had reversed this condition, and I found a interview. I can't remember if it was with Jordan Peterson or Joe Rogan, or I mean, Dr. Baker with Joe Rogan. And Joe
Hmm.
Rogan has the same condition.
Hmm.
And he was talking about a carnivore diet and the fact that that condition started to reverse after he had been on the carnivore diet for 30 days. And I thought, man, that seems impossible. And number two, what in the world is this carnivore diet? this
That's
sounds this sounds crazy. So I did a little bit more digging, and one of the first videos I seen was Black Carnivore. She had a guest on from Russia, I think it was,
hmm
and over a period of 6 to 9 months, his vitiligo on his face had started to reverse, and that was it for me. I went down the rabbit hole of carnivore diet. What is it, and how do I do it? Found videos of Dante from Ferrigno Freedom. I found Dr. Barry's videos. I found Dr. Baker's videos. I found your
hmm
videos, and after seeing the validation from medical doctors that it was okay, essentially, to do this because of all my indoctrination in the past with dietary uh, suggestions and rules and things like that, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna give it a try and see what works. And here we are. That condition has now started to reverse itself after 5 months of eating a carnivore diet, and it's not going as fast as what I would hope, but it's getting better and not getting worse. So
Yeah.
that's two thumbs up for me.
Yeah. And I think that that's a powerful point. Um, I'm comfortable with things getting better. Not getting worse is the most important thing. So, because if you can kind of hold it in its tracks, that's probably still a victory. And you never know what when cells, melanocytes, we think about when they're damaged or harmed, can they fully recover? Just like a person who has diabetes with their islet cells, can they recover? And there may be points of no return, but at the end of the day, if we can halt that, then we're in pretty good shape. And I think when I thought about this vitiligo question, the first thing that comes to mind for maybe all of this stuff we talk about today is inflammation. And if we can reduce inflammation, maybe our body can heal itself. I do know that when I learned about vitiligo, it's those melanocytes. You lose the melanocytes, and sometimes, you know, that's activated by the CD8 T cells, those cells in our immune system. So that's kind of pathologic, and the hallmark of vitiligo is the activation of the CD8 T cells. But what's cool about low carb and particularly keto and carnivore, that the cells that are kind of known to destroy melanocytes are kind of in that dietary pattern, you reduce the number of cells that do that. So ultimately, it has a positive effect on your your melanocytes, so they won't be harmed. So I think, and again, this is almost like an autoimmune talking point, and there's probably other mechanisms, but I do know one mechanism, which is the one I just described. If you get rid of the cells that are harming the melanocytes with this dietary pattern, you're going to do better. So I'm just happy you kind of landed in the in that rabbit hole of carnivore. And again, one of the reasons why I want to be out in front of people, just like those others you've mentioned, is to give people permission. That does not mean that we're all knowing and we know everything, but what we can tell you is that there's enough evidence to suggest you should have this on your in your toolkit. It should be one of the things you consider, and then you do your experiment and then see how you do. If you don't do well, go to something else. But it's nice to know that your diet can make such a big impact. So one of the things that happened in your life, I've learned, is that you had a traumatic brain injury, which affects your mental clarity and other parts of your life. So talk a little bit about what it was like to have traumatic brain injury. How did that happen? And then more importantly, how did this dietary pattern improve that?
Sure, absolutely. So in 2017 in February, I was on my way to work, and traffic was stopped on a major highway. And because it was stopped, I don't know what happened in terms of this truck driver. I don't know if he was on his cell phone or what, but he didn't hit the brakes, and he smashed into 3 cars behind me before he hit me. And my truck actually, I was hit so hard as the 4th vehicle that it scaled up the median wall and came back down. Now, when I got hit, I don't remember any of that. The only thing I remember is parts exploding behind me, almost in slow motion, and plastic and glass and parts and just stuff just going absolutely everywhere. And I was taken to the hospital at that point. They did some scans, and in the end, they basically said that I had lost 10% brain function. I had hit my head on something in the vehicle. What I'm sure it was multiple things because the truck had kind of flipped. So yeah, I went through 2 years of physical therapy, speech therapy, and multiple just medications that they had me on for cognition mainly. And so that was a really tough time. There was a lot of complications with that. With balance, I couldn't close my eyes and stand up. I would immediately fall over. Even with my eyes open and trying to balance at physical therapy, on this balancing, I forget what they call them, buso or something like that, like a balancing ball.
Yes.
I couldn't stand on that for very long. There was many things that I couldn't do that I was able to do very well prior to that. My balance has always been absolutely spot on and perfect. So that was sort of demoralizing and depressing to go through those sorts of things. But I also had cognition issues where my brain would get overloaded. So after 30 minutes, an hour, and as time progressed and things, got better, this duration lasted longer. But I would get to a point where my brain would effectively just shut off. and I couldn't handle really anything else that day. A lot of times it would end up in a headache that was debilitating, and I would have to lay down. It would make me more dizzy at some points, and a lot of times, once I got to that overload state, I would have motor tics. So much like somebody with Tourette's has a motor tic that can't control it, my body got to that point where it would start having these tics, and obviously that was a concern for me because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is a permanent thing, is what the doctors are telling me, and it may get better on its own over time, but likely I'm going to have to live with this issue. So they prescribe things like Vyvanse and Adderall to try to get my brain essentially to be able to handle not being overloaded. It's kind of kick-started, I guess. And now I've learned that that's kind of like a speed.
Right. It's
a narcotic, I guess. It's pretty bad. So my journey to healing with the brain injury effectively started with reading the paper that comes with Adderall and understanding that people have died from taking this, that it's, I think they consider it a class 2 narcotic.
They do.
And all the complications that come along with it, that the doctor never told me when they prescribed it, that all these things could happen. So I started to wean myself off of that. And that helped a little bit, but things never really improved drastically until I started the carnivore diet. And like I said, I started for something else, and the carnivore diet healed this brain injury completely, 100%. I have zero balance issues. I have zero motor tics. I have zero cognition issues. There's no exhaustion, brain, just getting to a point where my brain shuts down. All of that is completely gone. And I thank the God above that I found this way of eating, that it's been able to fix this issue for sure.
Yeah. And again, giving people permission to try something that sounds like crazy, just eating an animal-based diet. But again, for those who are checking us out, we're not asking everybody to be carnivores. We're just saying, if you have something to fix, this needs to be in your toolkit. And some people land at keto, some people land at low carb. I even have some patients who are vegetarian low carb, which is hard to do, but they manage to pull it off. So, and they have reasons for that. Some are religious, some are cultural, some are ethical, but either way, there's a way to do that. So, so I really appreciate you sharing such a dramatic story. I appreciate you bringing up the medicine, because when you think about those stimulants, and you're right, they're like speed. It's like the movie Limitless, but instead of doing it with your diet, you're doing it with a pill, just like in the movie. And that's not the way to go. It will maybe for some people improve their focus and their ability to, pay attention. And maybe for some, reduce their impulsive behaviors and their hyperactivity, because it works kind of in both ways, which is really interesting. But it works on dopamine and dopamine and norepinephrine. And when you're focused on, when you think about any drug that's focused on neurotransmitters and they're just focused on certain ones, what about the other neurotransmitters, right? And so when you're elevating certain neurotransmitters and ignoring the others, that's where you get side effects. And your body likes to work as like an orchestra, everything working together. And that's why the dietary approach is better, because it will think about all the neurotransmitters together. And what they found in research is that when you're in a ketotic state, that's a more efficient fuel source for your brain. It's less toxic. When you think about glucose being metabolized and being, used as a source of energy, it's very dirty. It's a lot of byproducts. And when you use ketones, it's a cleaner fuel. So it kind of boosts the energy of the brain in a way that's more efficient. But more importantly, when you're trying to heal and recover, you need those energy factories called mitochondria to you need more of those. And when you're in this kind of ketotic state, you're going to increase the number of those mitochondria. And there is this term that we've learned about called brain plasticity. And when you think about brain plasticity, our ability to kind of change and improve our brain, we thought that wasn't possible. Now we know that you can change the brain structure. You can change how it functions over time, but you got to give it the right fuel. So again, and do it. I want to do a shout out to Dr. Georgia Ede, whose new book is coming out. Maybe I'll have a link in the notes for her book. But the work she's done on mental health, brain health, there are some others. I think Dr. Chris, why am I forgetting his last name right now? But we have others who are doing this great work, and we want to make sure that Palmer, Dr. Chris Palmer, that's what it is. So we need to get this information in front of people. They had a stroke, they gave up hope, but you don't have to give up hope. There's a way to get better. You may not be back to when you were 20, but you will be better if you feed your brain the right fuel. So I'm glad that happened for you, because I would have never known that you've been through so much. I think about Doug Reynolds, who leads the Low Carb USA and the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners with Pam Devine, and he had traumatic brain injury, and yet he was able to get better because of this dietary pattern. So I appreciate that, man. So thank you for sharing that. And let's go to another area that I learned that was an area that improved, and that was the aches and pains. Trying to get old on Dr. Hampton. Arthritis, gout. You had to deal with that. So talk a little bit about what life was like dealing with those conditions and how the dietary pattern improved those areas.
Absolutely. This one's a little bit of a short one. I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis, and when I first heard that, I basically said, "Okay, so where is it?" And they told me, "Well, it's everywhere, every joint in your body." I'm like, "Oh, that's wonderful," and that kind of coincides with how I felt.
Yeah.
Just every joint aches and pains, and it wasn't really debilitating to the point where some people, like with rheumatoid arthritis, might have. But it was kind of that feeling when you wake up and you roll over and you hit the floor, and you're kind of you can feel it, and you have to get the oil flowing through everything and loosen up. It was painful at points with the arthritis, especially in my back, and just constantly dealing with that. It was to the point where I essentially took Tylenol, almost like M&Ms, to relieve some of that pain. But the gout as well. The gout was a lot more of an acute pain than the osteoarthritis. So again, I would take Tylenol to try to relieve that pain as well. Everybody always said, "No, take out Advil, take Advil." Right. Well, I'm allergic to ibuprofen, so I can't take Advil. So I'm thinking, oh man, this wonder drug, I can't even take it. So just kind of live with it, and took Tylenol religiously to kind of manage the pain with that. So, and since I've gone carnivore, that was one of the first things that actually stopped hurting, was the arthritis and getting gout pain. Within 5 days, I would say it was gone.
Surprise, surprise.
Right.
And your friends and family were right. Anti-inflammatories will be more effective for things like gout and arthritis, but they have side effects. And you were right when you said we're going to manage the pain, but we're not getting to the root cause of the pain, right? And that's the beauty of lifestyle, is that it gets to the root cause. Now, you could say the root cause is because I was playing for the Bears, and I've damaged my knees over time, right? But the other root cause is inflammation, and what these dietary patterns, low carb, keto, and carnivore do is that they reduce inflammation. So you're getting more to the root cause. So maybe you won't need the Tylenol, and as weird as this may sound, people, if you just search what to eat for a gout diet that'll reduce your uric acid, it'll probably tell you not to be a carnivore. It'll say, don't eat meat. How dare you go against the standard of care, right? But what they're missing is they're managing disease by avoiding what they think is harmful. But what they miss is that, well, if I eat the right dietary pattern, I'm not eating the things that are leading to insulin spikes and things like that, then I'm probably not even going to have a gout issue, because the inflammation is what's going to then lead to the gout flare. So I just think that how we think about these things is a little off. And I know that most of what we're talking about today is about inflammation, but even when you're in a ketogenic state, whether it's a keto diet or carnivore, that ketone, we think about beta hydroxybutyrate, right, can actually, and it kind of helps to block the immune system receptors that are linked to inflammation. So if I block that, then I'm going to have less inflammation and feel better. If I have a diet that doesn't cause insulin spikes, most of us are aware that too much insulin causes inflammation, and you have an influx of inflammatory cells in a high insulin state. So if you're eating this way because you're not eating the macronutrient, the carbs that raise your insulin level, and you're focused on protein and fat, you're not going to have that high insulin. Therefore, you're not going to have that macrophage influx that leads to inflammation. So there's a ton of other mechanisms by which this works. But at the end of the day, the key word, it reduces inflammation. So for all those folk out there who have gout, who've been told not to eat red meat, we got good news for you.
Absolutely.
But I would not. This is the caution. Because your body excretes ketones and uric acid, if you're becoming keto adaptive, meaning that you have not been in ketosis and your body's not used to using ketones for fuel like it does in my body and Adam's body, then you may find that you can't get rid of uric acid when you're becoming keto adaptive, and it actually can cause a gout flare. So the key is ease into the dietary pattern, or take something like allopurinol while you're transitioning from your standard American diet to this dietary pattern. And then once you get there, you will start using the ketones effectively. You won't be spilling them in your urine. Your uric acid can leave as it should. And then what will happen is you won't have flares. But if you're going in and out of ketosis because it's the holidays, then you may put yourself at risk for a flare. So in those settings, you either got to ease back into it or maybe have medicine like allopurinol to mitigate that until you are keto adaptive. So just throwing that out there as well. The next thing I want to touch on is anxiety and depression. And I know that's something you also had to deal with. And I know that as you're celebrating your anniversary today, we want you to be happy. We don't want you to be anxious. So what's happened in your life? What was it like to deal with those, and how is life different now?
Sure. So depression and anxiety has, as far as I can remember, has essentially always been a part of my life. It was never to the point where I was going to go to the doctor and get diagnosed and things like that. And mainly out of fear, I guess, that, once you get this diagnosis, now there's really something wrong with you. Right. And I just didn't want to go down that road. I knew I had issues with depression and just a general negative feeling essentially all of the time. And I had to push through in order to have, a positive experience in life. And, but the main thing that was an issue for me was anxiety. The anxiety was through the roof. It was, hey, I'd always ask my wife, hey, can you talk to so-and-so for whatever reason? And it was just something trivial and nothing that I couldn't do or couldn't handle, but it's just the anxiety. I just didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to interact with others for whatever reason, especially if there was some sort of something high stakes, or something on the line. that would require a little bit more in-depth conversation. I just didn't want to do it, and I would do everything I could to actually avoid that. And being in business, that is not a good recipe for
No,
success. So
no.
I knew I wanted to be in business, which is why I partnered up with my business partner, because he's more the outgoing person. I'm more the introverted, anxious person that doesn't want to talk to anybody. So that, the anxiety actually led to business decisions that caused me to do things that I otherwise wouldn't do. I could have been in business by myself, but now I have to split the profits
Yeah, right.
with Jay. So so that was a huge thing for me, was the anxiety, and that is absolutely 100% completely lifted to the point where I'm on camera now, and before I would be the one putting people on camera. I
Right.
was mortified to be on camera. I have very few pictures of me being fat because I just didn't want to see that, and the anxiety was just through the roof. Don't put me on camera. So now I'm actually out here preaching to the world to
Right.
eat meat, which is it's incredible to me that eating this lifestyle has lifted the anxiety to the point where I don't even think about it. It's, this is something that I have to do to let people know and understand that they can reclaim their life and their health. And it's just been so monumentous for me that I just can't believe it, Tony.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I knew I had any anxiety. The only time I had depression was temporarily when I was a real estate investor and things were plummeting when the housing market crashed, and I had like 5 properties and it didn't go very well. So, but I'm gonna tell you something. You don't realize that you may have a little bit of that until you start feeling better. Like when I started my journey towards, low carb keto, now carnivore, I've always been a positive person, but man, it's at a whole nother level now. And you can light up the room with your positive energy when you feel good and when your mind's working optimally. And what I really love, I mentioned Dr. Georgia Ede in her new book, and I encourage people to check that out. It should be out around the time of this recording or shortly after. She was involved in the study Keto for Refractory Mental Illness, and when they did that study, they had like 100% improvement in symptoms in the study. Participants 100%. For those who need to lose weight, 96% weight loss in the group. They also looked at can we get people off medicines, and 64% were discharged on less medicine in that study. But most importantly, which is crazy, and this study was depression, bipolar, and schizophrenia. And and these were hospitalized people now, just doing keto, and again, carnivore is a version of that. 43% left in clinical remission. So,
Wow.
and if you think about bipolar in particular, and maybe schizophrenia, it's hard to put that into remission. But a diet did that while reducing medicines. So again, it's almost malpractice for us not to tell people about this. And it's almost medical incompetency to not teach doctors who are in the mental health field about it. And it's embarrassing, shout out to Harvard, that they would then say to Dr. Georgia Ede, you can't teach nutrition at Harvard, so we're not going to allow you to do that. So she said, it was nice knowing you. So imagine this institution that we claim is the best on the planet. I would argue University of Chicago is pretty much right there too, but that's politics there. Listen, how could they then say to a doctor who's teaching patients how to heal that they can't talk about nutrition? So that's the world we live in, guys, and that's why we have to create our own platforms, the one you've created, Adam, the one I've created, to just give people information. They can just search keto for refractory mental illness and read the study. It's a randomized controlled trial. So it's not like we're just making this up. It's not anecdotal evidence. This is real science. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'm going to transition you down to your feet. I'm not like Eddie Murphy. He loves feet, you know, and in his old Boomerang, I think was the name of the movie.
Right.
Not for that purpose, but for the purpose of plantar fasciitis. I know you've had to live with that. Talk to me a little bit about that condition, how it got better, and what was it like to have it?
Absolutely. So the plantar fasciitis pain was the most intense and the most surprising change for me going on the carnivore diet was this condition. You
Mm,
know, the brain injury and all that sort of thing I had kind of lived with, and the arthritis pain and the vitiligo, those issues I just kind of lived with. But this one was much more acute pain. So I literally could not stand for more than 30 minutes to an hour, and I would have to sit
mm,
down for 2 hours and rest my feet because the pain level was so high. And I tried, $250 pairs of shoes, multiple ones, so I could have a hiking one and a walking one and a dress one,
mhm,
and just so much money I spent on
mm,
these shoes that are supposed to fix this condition, or at least put your body in an environment where it could heal itself. And it did provide some relief. I had to wear a boot at night that stretched my foot, and none of that seemed to really do much of anything. The condition essentially stayed there, and after 3 days, that pain started to go away. And now this condition was there for almost 2 years.
mm,
So after 3 days, that pain started to lift, and on the fifth day, it was 100% gone, and it has not come back in almost a
mm,
year.
mm. That's insane. And um, going back to the sports analogy, when the Bulls were back in the Michael Jordan days, they had Joakim Noah as one of their players. And I remember he suffered from plantar fasciitis, along with other NBA players. I'm a huge fan of watching that sport, although it's painful to say Damian Lillard is in, Wisconsin. That's they're my competition up there.
Right?
But, he had it. Paul Gasol back in the day had it. And some other players had it. So it's a pain. And it's probably worse for them because they really got to get up and down that court. And watching these incredible athletes. In fact, the week of this recording, in fact, the day we released the audio version of the recording and possibly the video, I'm going to be at a Bulls game. We'll be seeing the Charlotte Hornets. They're not exactly the best team right now, but at the end of the day, me and my two boys are going to go do that. But plantar fasciitis is a common cause of heel pain. And I see a ton of patients with that. But it's all about going back to what we talked about earlier, inflammation. And when that little band, that thick band of tissue gets inflamed, it's really painful. So having a diet that reduces inflammation is the key. But more importantly, I think it's important to think about collagen and the essential amino acids that come from eating high quality animal products. You're going to heal much better by not only reducing inflammation, but giving the body the essential amino acids it needs to heal. And when you eat all of that type of food, you're going to get the collagen, and that's going to help you heal. So it's really multiple, again, mechanisms by which this is going to happen. But because that problem is such a pain, it's nice to know that was a nice kind of side effect that you weren't really expecting to happen. So I'm really appreciating that too. So I'm looking at your face. I'm not really seeing acne at this point, but I know that you
Thank you.
mentioned that was an issue too. So when did you just get acne as an adult, or were you having it even younger?
I've had acne ever since, puberty. And
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's been an issue my entire life. I'm 47, and you think it's ridiculous. You're 46, 47 years old and you still have acne issues.
Right. Not cool.
And that, would lead to anxiety and depression as well,
That's right.
because it's like you're a grown man. Yeah, it's
Grown
time to
man.
put this stuff away for sure. So
That's right.
I would say that the carnivore diet did not um, entirely remove the acne, it allowed me to eliminate things and understand that it was dairy that was the main issue with me. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I like that.
since I've eliminated the dairy, the acne is it's gone.
So it sounds like, again, reminder, guys, experimentation is important, and there's no one size fits all. We all kind of come to these dietary patterns with different things that we're trying to fix. And yes, the inflammation from some of the starchy foods, sugary foods, seed oils, we know that those are issues. But then there's other things. Some people who adopt keto or carnivore will do just fine with dairy, while others won't. So you have to kind of listen to your body, and we're not going to demonize a person for eating things that don't bother them. We're not going to demonize people for eating the things that help them. We're just going to allow people to do their own experiment. And clearly, we know that the dietary pattern will reduce inflammation, just as we've previously described. But we find that those ketones are very protective, and hopefully that experiment that you continue to do will continue to keep that in check. Another thing that's helped me is sleep. I felt that I had to have a little coffee in the morning, but I had an irritable bowel problem, and coffee wasn't really good for that. So I just suffered through it. But now I find that if I get enough sleep, I do better, and I've found that these dietary patterns help. So what's your sleep situation been like?
Sure. My sleep pattern before I ate carnivore was, at least 8 hours a night. I had to have 8 hours a night of sleep in order to function the next day. And even after sleeping 8 hours, it never really felt like you slept 8 hours. It just didn't feel like you slept enough. And so enter carnivore, and now I sleep 5 to 6 hours a night, and I feel like I've had the best sleep in my entire life.
Crazy.
So I've gained, at a minimum 2 hours every single day to live life, live life with my family, pursue business efforts, to do the honey-do list,
Right.
Things that are more important to me than just laying in the bed. So it's been incredible. Just the deep sleep alone, even if I still had to sleep 8 hours, for me, just waking up feeling rested is so much more better for me than it was before, for sure.
Yeah, and again, if you don't know what deep sleep feels like, you wouldn't even know what Adam was talking about. But there is a difference when you wake up and you just feel rested. Some people wake up and they're hitting the snooze button. If I wake up, and this happened today, Adam, I woke up, my wife's like, stay in the bed longer. I'm like, baby, I just can't, because I'm wide awake,
Right.
and this is like 5 in the morning. It's like, and so one of the things you said that's important is it only takes 5 to 6 hours. That does not mean that everybody only needs 5 to 6 hours, but I have found that in this dietary pattern, I don't need as much sleep. It is what it is. So, and I'm okay with that. The other thing, that if people are doing this dietary pattern, keto, carnivore, and they're like, well, my sleep is not as good as I expected, it may be an electrolyte issue, and that's why I love magnesium. And you can get a magnesium cream and just put a little bit on it. Maybe if you still have an ache and pain, you haven't gotten quite to, Adam's point, but if you still got an ache and pain, you can put that magnesium cream, and then that'll mitigate that, because sometimes when you're with this dietary pattern, you'll lose electrolytes and you may have not replaced them adequately. And shout out to Keto Chow. They have a new electrolyte supplement, which I already have. I haven't tried it yet, but I think having electrolytes available can help mitigate that as well. So, but just as importantly, this is how you should think about it. When you're sleeping, one of the top fuel sources are ketones, right? Because you're not eating, right? So wouldn't it then be logical that if I'm in a ketotic state, I'll probably sleep better, because that's kind of what my body does when I'm sleeping. And what they find is that in ketosis, you do better with your your sleep cycle, your sleep wake cycle is better, so your circadian rhythm is better. And when you're in those different stages of sleep, you just do better when you're in a ketotic state, because that's kind of like the state your body is in when you're sleeping. So just a FYI.
Nice.
So headaches are one other thing I had thought about for you, and I know you were having some headaches. So that's kind of going back to this. I don't know if that was a traumatic brain injury, but were you having headaches even before that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Headaches were, and it was 100% diet.
Mm,
Looking back, I would again eat Tylenol like M&Ms.
yeah.
I would continually get headaches, and I'm not sure exactly why. I'm sure you could probably, provide some insight into this, but I was standard American diet, so I would
Mm,
sugar and carb load, and my brain function would be okay, and then it would crash, and
yeah.
during
Yeah.
that crash, I would get headaches. Now, it wasn't to the level of like migraines. My wife has migraines, and those are different than a headache.
Hmm. Sure.
But every 2, 3, 4 days, I would have a headache, and I'd have to take Tylenol to try to remedy that situation. And that went on for decades. And I
Mm,
have not had, I maybe have had one headache since I
mm,
started the carnivore diet, once I got through the transition phase.
okay. Yeah, I think first of all, shout out to Professor Tim Noakes, who initially taught us to carb load when he was running marathons. Now he's kind of taught us don't do that because that, the first thing I think about is when you have up and down sugars, you're going to have up and down a whole lot of other stuff, and your body is just not in a steady state, which is where you want it to be. And so when you're up and down, it puts stress on your body. And I think that's going to increase the chances that a headache will be triggered. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Um, when I think about, I mentioned earlier that ketones are a cleaner fuel source. So when you have a glucose fuel source, which is kind of asking the mitochondria to make a whole lot of toxic byproducts that your body still has to get rid of through various mechanisms like autophagy, well, it's going to increase the risk that you're going to be triggered to have a headache because it's just toxic. So being in a ketotic state is going to reduce the chances that you're going to have a headache because of that. And when you think about the entire, because everything works together, so our entire body, metabolically works together. So if you're metabolically healthy everywhere, you're probably not going to have as much of an issue with your brain function. And I mentioned how ketones really help to increase mitochondria. You're going to also, by doing that, you're going to reduce, if you use that cleaner fuel source, you're going to have less oxidative stress. And all of that lack of inflammation is going to reduce your risk for headaches. And there's more mechanisms, but at the end of the day, it's by creating an environment where you're in a stable, steady state. And headaches tend to be triggered by when there's stress, when there's something disrupted, rather even not having enough sleep. And those things cause stress that then lead to headaches. And when you're with this dietary pattern, you kind of level that off. So there's no need for your body to give you a symptom, because to me, headaches are just symptoms of saying something's wrong. And what's wrong is you're probably not eating right. So
Right.
among other things, right? So,
Hmm.
and the last thing I wanted to bring up was you mentioned your heart rate was better. I want you to maybe comment on that a little bit about how your heart rate seemed to be lower with this dietary pattern.
For sure. So I didn't even really know that was an issue or a problem. I've always been, I've always felt somewhat healthy of a person my entire life. Um, so the heart rate thing was something that I hadn't even noticed. My heart would race at times, maybe more so than what I thought it should. But it was my Apple Watch that actually told me that over time, my resting heart rate had dropped 15 beats per minute. And I thought that's pretty crazy. Like I haven't
Hmm.
done anything but just changed the way that I've ate. I didn't exercise, and to go rewind back to the weight loss, I didn't exercise one bit and lose that weight. I didn't start for weight loss. I didn't exercise at all, and the weight just dropped off. Um, so yeah, the heart rate thing was kind of a surprise that that it actually had dropped.
Yeah, it's so many nuances to all of these things. The only thing I knew about when I was doing my obesity training, I learned that people who were obese had an increased risk for AFib, primarily because of the inflammation in the heart. And that increased risk goes up 4% starting at a BMI of 25, 4% with each BMI above 25, 26, 4%, 27, 8%. It just kind of doubles, which is crazy. So imagine when you think about your previous weight, that alone was a huge risk factor for you having things that could lead to things like AFib, and the increased heart rate is how AFib is manifest. So I appreciate that. Any other non-scale victories that you had that you'd like to share?
Sure. Well, let's see. Gray hair.
Gray
So
hair. That's
yeah.
crazy.
So my gray hair seems to be not as gray as it was before, and I thought I was crazy looking in the mirror, and I'm like, man, it seems like it's changing, but you look at it every day, so it's almost imperceptible to see that change. So
Hmm.
my business partner actually brought it to my attention as well, and because we only see each other every couple of months, and he said, man, are you coloring your hair now?
Right.
I said,
What's
dude,
going on?
seriously, do you think I'm going to color my hair? Like that's the least of my worries. So he noticed it as well, that it had started to change color. Also to go along with that, I started taking liver supplements, beef liver pills, and
Hmm.
my hair seems to be growing in much thicker.
Hmm.
I've always had thin hair, and since I added in the beef liver, because I'm not going to eat it, I'm taking the capsules,
That's
and it
funny.
does seem like it's helping with making my hair thicker for sure.
That's funny. I definitely like liver, so there you go, Adam. But I understand, and for those who checked us out today, liver is easily the most nutrient rich food you can probably consume. It's not the kale, it's not the spinach, because the liver is more bioavailable. It doesn't have those anti nutrients and other fibers and things that inhibit the absorption of nutrients. So, and maybe just intensifying the nutrients your body needed was able, it's kind of helping to, because when you think about hair and what they recommend, it's all about add the supplements, add the nutrients to see if we can help the hair grow better. So that's excellent. Let's talk about how you plan to protect your personal nest over the next year. Any aspects of the nest and rope acronym that you're going to focus on?
Sure. So, obviously eating this way and seeing the impacts that it's had in my life, it's of primary importance to me to evangelize my family and get their metabolic health back in check. And a rising tide lifts all boats. So
I
if
know
I
it.
can get them healthy, it's going to make not only themselves happier and healthier, but the entire family together, and the world at large. So definitely that's one of the main things that I'm going to try to do to protect my nest and continue on with the YouTube channel to
That's
spread the
right.
message to others
That's
so
right.
that they can in turn help to protect their nest. So
Absolutely. Well, sounds like you're going to make that definition broader. And I agree. Although I'm trying to kick my kids out of the house, I do want to protect everybody in my
right.
nest, even when they're not at the same address. And I really admire that. I respect that. I really celebrate. You say hi to what's your wife's name?
Beth.
Beth. Okay. You say hi to Beth. Thank her for giving us a part of your anniversary day,
For sure.
spending time with me and just spreading this healing message to more people. I know you got your YouTube channel, so let's share that. Any other places where people can find you?
Absolutely. So the YouTube channel is Carnivore Today, and on every other social media platform, as far as I know, it's Carnivore Today. So
Nice.
Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it now. Um, yeah, so you can find me at Carnivore Today at all of those different places.
We'll make sure to have those links. And again, I want to thank you for working with Alia and Carrie on the documentary. Looking forward to doing more to participate in that. Again, we try to balance the narrative so that the only thing people see on Netflix is not just the Blue Zones documentary, but documentaries that give perspective and give people choice. For those who want to be plant-based, we got your back. For those who are animal-based, we got your back as well. And so thank you so much for the work you're doing, for joining me on this podcast, for letting me, chat with you on your podcast. I just
Absolutely.
really appreciate you, man. So keep up the good work, okay?
Absolutely. I appreciate you, Doc, and keep doing what you're doing. And I appreciate your insight. I love your podcast and the insight that you provide in terms of, what's been happening with me. That's definitely unique. And definitely everybody continue to support Tony and his efforts to heal humanity.
That's right. You better know it. So thank you. And well said, Adam. And so today, guys, we had some weight success story, but a lot of what we shared today was non-weight related success stories. And I really want to emphasize that, because if we only focus on the scale, I think we're missing an opportunity to heal in other areas. So we learned how traumatic brain injury can be better. Our mental clarity can improve. We learned about arthritis, gout, and even plantar fasciitis. We talked about depression, anxiety, and how we can put those into remission. We learned that our sleep is better and that we may not even need as much sleep. We learned that we can look a little cuter, a little more handsome by making sure our acne is in check. And of course, if we're going to be present for our anniversary, we don't want to have a headache. We want to be present and be able to be in front of our significant other. And who knew that gray hair could be improved? Who knew? I mean, it's just an amazing thing to hear. So it sounds unbelievable. It sounds like this can't be true. He's a plant. He made this stuff up. No, Adam, this is his real journey. These are real examples of what can happen. And we have others who will continue to share their story as well. So if you've had any lack of motivation to make dietary changes in the new year, you now have the inspiration to do just that. So as I mentioned in the intro, it's now time to think about what your goals are. You need to write them down and decide how big those goals will be, while making sure they're aligned with your purpose. And if you do that, you will greatly increase the chances that you'll achieve your goals for 2024. So by the end of 2024, we'll have a different story to tell. So if you've liked this conversation with me and Adam, like, share, subscribe, comment, share with the world your experience, because this is a grassroots effort. We all have roles, whether we're holding on to the camera, giving medical advice, or simply giving a testimonial. We all need to share our stories of success. So I really appreciate everybody, including you, Adam, for coming to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. And until the next episode, continue to be safe, be well, and continue to protect your nest. You've been listening to Protecting Your Nest with Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com.